I do not pray for these alone, but also for those who will believe in me through their word, that they all may be one, as you, Father, are in me and I in you, that they also may be one in us, that the world may believe that you sent me. And the glory which you gave me I have given them, that they may be one just as we are one, I in them and you in me, that they may be made perfect in one, and that the world may know that you have sent me and have loved them as you have loved me.
Welcome back to Embracing Tradition. Today I want to talk about one of my most frequently asked questions, and that is why I chose Catholicism over Orthodoxy. This video is not so much against Orthodoxy as it is a video about being for Catholicism. If you are looking for an apologetics against Orthodoxy, this is not for you. This video is going to be focusing on our personal reasons of why we are becoming Roman Catholics instead of Eastern Orthodox, but it is in no way intended to be an apologetic argument against Orthodoxy. There are plenty of Catholic apologists out there, such as Joe Heschmeyer, who can probably do a way better job than I can at explaining the intricacies and differences between Eastern Orthodoxy and Catholicism. So I'm going to stick to the personal journey that me and my husband have been on and our reasons why we chose the road that we did.
1, 2, 3, and...
After you watch this video of Embracing Tradition, all of your Orthodox After you watch this video, all of the Ortho Bros on Facebook and Twitter are going to crumble. All of the Orthodox are going to become Catholic. I'm just kidding.
When I first started down this path of researching and trying to understand ancient Christianity, I was very drawn to Eastern Orthodoxy. And I think it's really easy to dive very deep into Eastern Orthodoxy from Protestantism because we both share, for the most part, a dislike of Catholicism. There's a shared animosity, so it's easier to swallow and easier to try to understand things in that world. And for about 6 months, I only studied Eastern theology. I was very interested in it. I wanted to understand their history and everything. But through that study, I studied the schism and what caused the West and the East to split from each other. And through that time, I really started to want to understand the Catholic perspective. So after about 6 months of being just interested in Eastern Orthodoxy, I allowed myself to be open to learning about Catholicism as well as Eastern Orthodoxy. And I knew that I had been lied to my whole life about other things, so I wanted to see what I had been lied to about Catholicism. And so I really dropped my guard and I started listening to podcasts and YouTube channels such as Shameless Popery and Matt Fradd, Pints with Aquinas, and my perspective really started to change from super anti-Catholic to I no longer believe that they are an apostate church. I don't believe the Pope is the Antichrist anymore. I really quickly started to realize that they both had valid sacraments and apostolic succession. And my anti-Catholic feelings started to dissipate pretty quickly. And I started listening to Bishop Robert Barron a lot. I listened to his homilies and his readings of the scripture. And I really just became open to the fact that Catholics were in the same category in my mind as Eastern Orthodox. And to be really honest, a lot of the time I was going to these Catholic apologists because there is a shortage, in my mind, there's a shortage of good apologetic videos from Eastern Orthodox combating Protestantism. So I wanted to hear apologetics for my husband so I could be, shooting him questions. And I really found that the best answers I could find were from people like Joe Heschmeyer and things like that. So,
which, to be fair to the East, Protestantism is a unique position of the West.
Yes,
They
you
were
don't really have to
protesting
deal
the
with it.
Catholic Church,
Yeah.
not the East didn't have a Protestant Reformation,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. I needed to have questions that I could bring to my husband that were unique. He was Reformed, and the Reformed broke off from the Catholics. So I needed to understand why that happened, and the questions and the answers that go with that. And that was found for me in Catholic apologetics, because they're dealing with the argument, because they broke off from one another. So when Michael came to me and surprised me that we were going to go visit a Catholic church, I hadn't had to deal with the question of which way would I go, east or west. I just knew I liked either one. I would have been happy with either one, but I wasn't pressed upon to have to make that decision or to think about that in any way. And so when we really did start becoming, he was convinced of these things, I still had small hesitations to Catholicism, issues with things the Pope has said and things that have gone on with the clergy. And, the media has hyped all of those things up. And being brought up in a Protestant home and a nation that hates Catholicism, it really is difficult to overcome some of those prejudices that are really built into you. So I had some small things to still get over. But when we decided to start going to the Catholic parish that we're in now, and I love it. And I love the people, and I love the liturgy. I love our priest. And I can honestly say that any ounce of skepticism that I had towards Catholicism that was left before we started going has dissipated. And I really did start studying, and looking into the history of the papacy so I could understand Catholicism better. And I'm just convinced that that is where the truth is. Anyway, so that was just the beginning. That was just giving you a little slide into how I kind of made the mind shift from Eastern Orthodoxy, very heavy at the beginning, to being open to Catholicism.
And I think one thing that would be good to kind of shed light on, like the reasons why you are so open to both, is because, well, several key reasons, right? You really desired the Eucharist. You desired the body and blood of Christ, the real presence of Christ. The other thing was apostolic succession, right? And that's one thing that one of them, I guess the first reason that we could get into is finding apostolic succession and going to the church where we are. And so, what I mean by that is, let's rewind 1,500 years. Let's say that we're in 500, the year 500, and we want to know God. We're Christian. We want to know God. Well, where do you go? Well, you go to the church that is downtown, probably. Probably your house at that time is built around a church. Well, what church is it built around? It's built around a Catholic church. If you're in the West, it's built around a Catholic church. That is the location, or that's where you go. You go to the church that's there. There was, no Presbyterian church existed, no Baptist church existed, no Protestant church existed. You just went to the Christian church, the Catholic church. The Protestants have taught us in America that your chief duty as a Christian is to find the church. There's a church on every corner. They're everywhere, especially in the South. You're going to find 10 Baptist churches. Our little town of 6,000 people in South Georgia has, I think I counted in the paper, it listed all the churches. There was 18 Baptist churches that all believed the same exact thing. They can't get along. If they could get along, they could maybe have one pretty good sized church. But instead they have a bunch of little tiny churches of, 15 people in them. Some of them, are bigger than that, but. So there's 18 of those. There's one Methodist church and one this, one that, one Church of God. There's one Catholic parish, very tiny. So there's one in every corner, and your job, this is what you've been taught, your job is to find the church that most lines up with your interpretation of the Scriptures. You have to find that church. Well, if you rewind back That isn't what Christians have done throughout the centuries. They haven't found the church that lines up with them. They went to the church. There was not a billion options. They went to the church that was there, and they lined up their reasoning and understanding of what the Bible was teaching with what the church taught. And so
Completely backwards.
it's totally, completely flipped.
Yeah.
So when we're asking ourselves, okay, we want to go to the ancient church. What is the ancient church in the West? What is the ancient church where we're from? The Western world? That's the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
It just is. And if we even went back 100 years, an Orthodox church isn't even an option in America. The closest Orthodox church to our house is an hour and a half away. And if you go north of us, it's like 3 or 4 hours before you hit another Orthodox. So it's not even an option for most people in America. We're in the West. So we began asking the question, this is, again, the video is, what are the reasons that we chose the Catholic Church? Well, we're Westerners. And the Apostolic Church, the church that has apostolic succession in the West, is the Catholic Church. And so, if we were born in Russia, then we'd probably be Russian Orthodox.
Yeah.
Right?
And I will say this too, there are Eastern Catholics and there are Byzantine rites, rites and things like that. And there's no Eastern rite near us. But I would be totally for going and being a part of a Eastern Rite church because I do appreciate divine liturgy and I still love that ancient form of worship. I think it's beautiful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we should clarify that this is not... so we've noticed that in at least the Catholic Church that we go to, and the small, we have a very short time span of learning what Catholics... from other Catholics, in our lives. But the ones that we've met when we talk about Orthodoxy, they think we're talking about the Eastern Byzantine Rite Catholics, the Eastern Catholics. Yes. So we have to be really clear. The Eastern Catholics are in full communion with the Pope, with Rome. They could come to our church and have the Eucharist with us. They are Catholics, but their faith has divine liturgy, like they're Eastern Catholics. So that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about Eastern Orthodox.
One of the other reasons, I think we're on number 2, is that I found, there's overwhelming historical evidence for the papacy, for the Pope, and the primacy of the seat of Peter, and that is non-existent in Orthodoxy. And I think there are negatives about not having a pope within Eastern Orthodoxy. When I first was really drawn to Eastern Orthodoxy, I had this fantasy in my mind that they were all perfectly united and they were all, singing Kumbaya together, Eastern, worship. But they're not. They're all factioned within themselves, and there's scandal within the Orthodox Church. There's liberal sides of Eastern Orthodoxy as well. It's not a pretty perfect little picture like I had in my mind. And
this isn't like we have zero desire to attack the Eastern Orthodox Church.
No, this is not an attack. I just want to make it very clear that I was under a delusion that everything is perfect within Eastern Orthodoxy. Yeah,
and I would just say, if you're confused by what, we could possibly be referencing, just look up the seat of Constantinople right now with Bartholomew. And just Google the name Bartholomew and see the scandal that's around, around him. So
my only thing with that is I know that I have been attacked online recently by the Orthodox bros, and I just had experienced a side of Orthodoxy from those internet people that doesn't really align with what was beautiful and drew me into Orthodoxy in the first place, which is the humility and the love for people, especially within Eastern Orthodox saints. Reading some of your saints is a very good experience for anyone that is a Christian, and I was very drawn to their spirituality, but that is not the spirit that I have found particularly among Orthodox apologetics. I'm assuming that they're Protestant converts to Orthodoxy because that's the spirit they portray.
Yeah, and to be fair, also, just trying to be charitable, the Ortho Bros are um, not a good representation of
No, not at
Orthodoxy.
all. No, not at
And
all.
we realize that. Like, it's not something that we're blind to, thinking that, that is what true Orthodoxy is. Um, we recognize that it's not.
Yeah, no, and that
So,
wasn't a critique of orthodoxy. That was
yeah.
just the more I'm coming into the world of Catholicism, and the I feel like people have no room for nuance, and I have been one of those people before in my life where everything needed to be black and white, and that's just not real life. And I think it's possible to be a Catholic and still cherish and love Eastern Orthodoxy. I still think it's beautiful. I wish that they would come into communion with Rome. I think that that is something we can long for and pray for, because I think that the Church of Christ needs to be one. But I will never criticize a Protestant who goes east, who feels that that is what is best for them, because I think they have valid sacraments and they have valid apostolic succession, and I don't have any I don't have any fight with Eastern Orthodoxy at all. I respect them greatly, and I owe like a lot to what I learned from them for the period of time that I studied a lot of their resources.
Yeah, so the hostility, I get it. We are in schism,
Yeah,
right? We are in schism.
yeah,
They reject the Pope,
yeah,
and that's not a good thing, in our estimation. That's not something that we would agree with. However, the Catholic Church's position on them is quite clear, that they
yeah,
have valid ministers and they have valid sacraments. So,
yeah,
that's better than what we would say about Protestants. They have neither of those,
yeah,
and so um, we are closer as far as brothers and sister churches. We are closer to our Eastern brothers than we would be to Protestants.
And I think too that a lot of this is charity is lacking in our circles. Like, it's a big problem I see, and I think I've grown tired of a world that lacks any charity. Like, coming from Protestantism, I feel like there has been zero charity with our move to the Catholicism, and even with moving within the world of Protestantism. Um, so I think I long to be somebody who can have charity for people who disagree with me and people who I disagree with, and still have a reverence and respect for things that are true within other faiths. And I think that's something we all need a dose of in this time of the world.
Except Baptists. You don't have to.
Okay, maybe not the Baptist.
No charity for the Baptists.
He's kidding. Mostly.
Am I kidding? So what's the next reason? Yeah, well, I would just say also because your second reason was kind of the papacy,
Yeah.
right? And I've had a lot of people ask me, well, why not be Eastern Orthodox? Like, why be Catholic? Because with Eastern Orthodoxy, you can have all those cool things, apostolic succession, valid Eucharist, and all of these things. You can have all praying to saints and Mary and all that. You have that. The beauty of the churches. Eastern Orthodox churches are beautiful,
Yeah,
just
beautiful.
like Catholic churches. They're absolutely beautiful. And so you can have all those things, but you don't have to have the Pope. So you can have all those things without the Pope. Because, see, they would see the Pope as this big, huge negative thing. But I would say the Pope is kind of the main reason to be Catholic.
Yeah.
That's one of the key reasons why we are becoming Catholic.
Yeah.
Is because we are convinced that the office of the Pope is essential. It's not.
And it's legitimate.
It's legitimate and it's essential.
Yeah.
It's
It is necessary to help with schism. It is to give the church a voice when people are disagreeing with each other. And I think that it's historically proven to have a legitimacy. And I just don't think you can get around it.
Yeah, there's leadership that comes through the Pope in many of the ancient councils that is undeniable from the early church fathers that are saying the Pope is the voice that decided between the two factions that disagreed in such and such council. and it was the Pope that made the difference, that decided. The Pope is there to unite us, to bring us unity, but also to lead and to direct.
Yeah.
And a church that does not have that does not have a head. And yeah, this isn't. I don't want this to devolve into attacking the East, so I don't want to do that. But I would just say that without leadership, it's much more difficult to answer problems that arise.
Yeah, the difficult
It's much more
questions.
difficult to answer the difficult question, like contraception.
Yeah.
The Catholic Church has an unapologetic, very strong stance against contraception. And it's very difficult for the East to ever say anything about it. You can have individual priests and people that would give their opinion on something, but they're not speaking for the church. And so one question that I would ask, our Eastern Orthodox brothers is, who is the head of your church? What are they going to say? Jesus Christ. Okay. Well, a Pentecostal will say that. A Baptist will say that. Who is the head of your church here on earth? There isn't one. So, some people would say that that's a benefit. I would say that that's not a benefit. And I don't think that that's how Christ left his church. We're not apologists, but I will give you a resource that has been invaluable to me. She's already mentioned Joe Heschmeyer. His book, Pope Peter. Mm-hmm. It's available on Amazon and also Audible if you like listening to audiobooks.
And this is not sponsored by Joe Heschmeyer.
It should be,
we promise.
Joe, call me, man. You're the bro. But he does a phenomenal job at not being so scholarly that most people can't understand it. He brings things down to a level that most people would be able to understand. So Pope Peter is a fantastic work on that. So that's the Pope, right?
So basically on this channel, you're not going to find any Orthodox hate. And you're not going to find any...
just Baptist hate.
So, that wasn't very apologetic. But I just want to make it very clear, this is not a channel where you're going to find me throwing Eastern Orthodox people under the bus. I love and respect Eastern Orthodox as a whole and individuals. And, this is just not the channel where you're going to find that happening.
Yeah, we're only attacking Baptists here. That's all we're doing. Only the Baptists. Just kidding. We like Gavin Ortland. Gavin Ortland, well, I respect him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I respect.
He's the reason why I stayed Protestant for probably 6 months.
Yes, this
longer
is true.
At least.
He tried to force me. He held my head to the screen. Watch Gavin Ortland.
Yeah, he's their guy. Yeah.
Don't be Catholic. Just watch Dr. Ortland.
Yeah, I made her eyes stay open to watch it.
Yeah. So, y'all, that was difficult. And I was trying to force feed Joe Heschmeyer. So it's kind of...
Yeah. Joe won.
Joe won.
Yeah.
Again, this is not sponsored by Joe Heschmeyer.
You should pay me for all the books that are going to be bought by her.
So, thank you for watching. I appreciate all of the support you guys have given me so far. If you enjoy this content, please like and subscribe.